You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast. I am Maxwell Brown and I am joined today not by Jack Hope, who is busy making a pirate costume, but after a quite a lengthy absence, it's Ross Legg. How are you doing, Ross?
I've got the dreaded. What do you got? The turbo cold.
Yeah, the non-COVID turbo cold circulating in the UK at the moment.
Yes, a little bit of yes. It hit me for six, is probably fair to say.
Yeah, it's a bit fresh as fluey from what I've heard, but good that you can still keep the cricket analogies going, and I'm sure we all, myself and those watching, wish you the best and hope you feel better soon, Ross.
Thanks, Max. It's much appreciated, and I know that there'll be a lot of love in the chat, no doubt, for my condition. So thank you.
Naturally. Obviously, today we will be covering the two games that have, very, very quickly passed us by this afternoon in New Zealand, Namibia, and the mini game of India versus Scotland. But before we get into those, Ross, would you like to go through the messages for our listeners, if you can remember them?
Oh, yes. You should like this video if you're watching it. Subscribe to our channel if you like what we're producing. Follow us at The Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And then also follow us on Patreon. So Patreon.com/The Cricket Pod, where you can get a hat, you can talk to Max, you can do all kinds of different things and have access to data. So that's what you want, the IPL data. And also, we're sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. So use code TCP25 for 25% off.
Lovely stuff. So two questions for you, Ross. Firstly, which game would you like to start with?
Well, let's stick to what we know, right? Let's start with the most recent. So let's talk about India versus the mighty Scotland.
Okie dokie. And the second one, before we get into that, Ross, is what's that thing on your lip?
What do you mean? What thing on my lip?
Oh, I'm just reading from the chat, mate. Just reading from the chat.
The glorious tash that is coming into it. I mean,
is it Movember or are you?
It is Movember. Well, we raised £200 last year, so I think we'll try and raise a little bit more money again this year. So all for a good cause, all for prostate cancer. So got to do your bit, Max. You could do a good one. I mean, if you shaved all this off, not only would you look a little bit more less like Ed Sheeran, you also have
more like a
mustache,
paedophile, less like Ed Sheeran. I don't know what's worse.
It's a trade-off you've got to make, right?
All right, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's move away from the Tash chat and get into the cricket, shall we? Yes. Right, yes. So starting with India versus Scotland, and we know what the situation is here, don't we? India are relying on Afghanistan to upset the apple cart slightly on Sunday, I think, in order to have a hope of going through. But they also needed to up their net run rate and try and get themselves a handsome victory. But the most important thing of today, of course, is that it's Virat Kohli's birthday, and in true birthday boy style, he won the toss. So that's his first. That's his first big present of the day, and I think sort of Virat Kohli's birthday kind of puts a reasonable explanation to what we saw today and how good India were, because I have it on good authority as team mentor that it was Dhoni's job to arrange festivities for the evening for Kohli's birthday for everyone, but unfortunately he left it a little too late to book the bar. So in Dubai on a Friday night, all the expats were out partying and they'd booked up all the space. So actually, the only slot he could get for Kohli's birthday was one of the early evening slots, and that meant that India were on a serious time pressure to get this game done, and winning the toss was the first step towards that. That's why they put Scotland in. They thought they'd try and skittle them quickly, and well, at least cheaply. It was a slightly long, drawn out death from the Scottish team towards the end, but after a brief spell of what looked like it might be some promise from George Munsey, Jadeja ripped through the top order, helped, of course, by the excellent Shami and Bumrah, and Scotland managed to post a paltry 85, and that gave India about 45 minutes to make their booking reservation before it got handed to walk-ins, which meant that KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma absolutely had to go for it, and boy did they go for it. They almost did it in the power play. They were 3 balls short in the end as Scotland managed to grab a couple of consolatory wickets, but the runs chased down in 6.3 overs, a blistering power play. They were on 70 after 5 overs, so cracking effort there. And they've completely overhauled the net run rate now. They've got a higher net run rate than Afghanistan, so we can put that one to bed. Basically now all down to Afghanistan.
Well, there was, it's 2 things, right? I mean, it was one of the Indian celebration festivals at the moment, wasn't it? Diwali. And what a gift! I mean, Rickon has highlighted that this was KL Rahul's gift to me, his innings. But I mean, we can get to that in a moment. Let's start with the bowling front. Max, what did you think around them playing Chakravarti, Ashwin, and Jadeja all together?
I quite like it. I think if you've got now Pandya able to bowl, it's not a bad idea, because you do have that sort of extra option to turn to the pace. But I mean, let's face it, it's we're talking about a game against Scotland here, and you think that Bumrah on his own would be too much for them. He went at 2.73 over. Like, Bumrah is far too good for this Scottish batting lineup, who, most of what we've impressed by, I think, arguably, has been their bowling and sort of what Mark Watt's been able to do. Aside from a couple of like George Munsey's great to watch with the reverse sweep, but you don't back Scotland to put on a big score anyway, so I don't think it necessarily mattered who India picked today, but I think it was good to get Chakravarti some overs, because I think as this competition goes into the later stages, there's some signs, aren't there, that the pitches are being played on more and more. It could be conducive to some turn. I think the spinners for India today were pretty difficult to deal with, and Mitch Santner was getting them to rip in the early game. So if that's happening,
well, I just like the flexibility, right? India have been a little bit stodgy. We always like to come back to like pudding references on here, right, when we talk about pitches. But India's selection's been a little bit stodgy, and it was quite nice to see them be a little bit more angel delight today, which
fluid
is
custard.
So many people. Fluid custard, exactly. I kind of thought Scotland rolled over today. I mean, they really had the wind blown out of their bagpipes, didn't they? It was it was really something that, as you say, they were just outclassed by a better bowling lineup, and that is going to happen. But I like some of the approaches of their players. Like Munsey, as you say, like is now known as the reverse sweeper. Leask, I thought, is quite a fun player. Like he's been hitting out in the last few games. He's pretty much realised, if I do well in the next kind of couple of games, at least show some promise, I might actually be considered to go and play in like the Pakistani Super League or whatever it might be. There's that opportunity to play franchise cricket, and I think these guys aren't stupid, right? They're just like, right, let's give this a proper go. And I think kind of him and Michael Watt actually have got. They're not the worst choices you could possibly make. I don't think. I'd love to see like an Associate Nations quota being thrown around, but a man can dream.
I think especially if it comes to if you're thinking IPL, I think you're more likely to get an uncapped quota first before you get an Associate Nation quota. But it's it's a nice thought, isn't it? You could get a little bit of extra funding for having Jatinder Singh or Mark Watt along. That'd be nice. I'd like to see that. That'd be good. But I just it was pretty disappointing, I think, from Scotland's point of view, that they didn't at least put a bit of a target up. But they just couldn't deal. They just couldn't deal with the bowling, could they? Really, from what I could see, it's just the golfing class basically showed today, and India came out and got the job done pretty impressively.
Yeah, it was quite nice to actually see. I mean, Rohit Sharma's he's reset really. He's looking quite good in the last 2 innings. He's just like the shackles are kind of off. He's just like Ishan Kishan is waiting in the wings. Like I want to be the next captain of this team. I want to stamp my authority and actually contribute to what's actually going on here. KL Rahul, oh my, what an innings! What there he is, finding his level against these semi-pros. Well done, KL. Um, just kidding, just kidding. Like this is what feeds the frustration. The guy is clearly immensely talented, and today put on a show, right? With 50 off 19 balls, that is a high class innings. Did exactly what the team needed of him, and just showed the talent that he has. And it's just that bit of going. People will turn around and say, "Oh, well, he has to do that because of the quality of the players in the rest of the team." I just think just get on with it, mate. Like you bat like this every single time. It'd be so much more interesting, so much more fun to watch, and you can clearly do it. So that's the only bit I'm going to talk about for KL Rahul, Max.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think we can copy and paste that argument as much as we like, can't we? We've made that enough times. But I think an interesting thing for me, like with the sort of the way the fixtures have landed for India, coming up against Pakistan first, then followed by New Zealand, and obviously it's clearly taken them a while to get into the tournament. And I know the two most recent games were only against Scotland and an Afghanistan side who've actually looked quite good, and they've pulverised both of them. Do you think maybe if it had been flipped around and India had been starting against Scotland and Afghanistan, would be looking at a side who are actually would have gone and stormed the group, the sort of the way they've performed over the last two games, and they're sort of on the up.
Yeah, but I always find it quite difficult when you kind of got that hindsight, right? Of going, oh, what fixtures, what if? And I'm kind of that opinion that when you are at a World Cup, you have to beat the people that are put in front of you, right? And if that is turning up against Pakistan, and they lost by 10 wickets, they got absolutely trounced by Pakistan. And we said on the show before when we were previewing it that they are slow starters. We proved right on that occasion. They have the players to walk this World Cup. They've got the best IPL league in the world. They've got some of the best T20 players in the world per position. They could play 3 different players per position and be just like, you know what, we're pretty good here. And they could easily be taking on England and Pakistan kind of at that top level that you've seen in this tournament. And the last couple of games, we have seen that. But again, it's against lesser. Well, it's a bit disrespectful to say lesser opposition, but that's just true, right? That there's lesser quality opposition. And it must really wind the Indian fans up to see someone like KL Rahul and Rohit just be able to do this consistently now. When is the pressure on? I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of a free reign. They're just like, well, if we go out, we go out. We got unlucky in the first game. Didn't get unlucky. Now it all comes down to relying on Afghanistan to beat New Zealand.
I suppose we could have a little chat about that. Afghanistan, New Zealand. What do we feel is going to happen there? Do you think Afghanistan have got it in them to overcome New Zealand?
Well, Aryan on our Twitter said, will the ICC and BCCI prepare a dust bowl in Abu Dhabi for the game between New Zealand and Afghanistan? I don't know what you could possibly be insinuating it there, but they have a chance, right? T20s is really close when it comes to small events kind of happening on the pitch and kind of putting it in someone's favour. I do think this New Zealand team have pretty good role definition. We're not quite sure. We can kind of get onto them in the next game, but I just can't see them throwing it away against Afghanistan, if I'm perfectly honest. I think the injuries that Afghanistan have got, will Majid play? I don't know. And that's such a big impact, right? When it comes to their whole lineup. Like they have 3-4 really good players, which gets you your 12 or your 16 overs. But those last 4 overs or those last 8 overs that you have to find is the bit where Afghanistan fall down a little bit.
Yeah, I think the lack of Majid is a big thing, isn't it, as well, because he's been so dangerous for them in the power play so far.
The frustrating thing is, though, they have other spinners who, like Case Ahmed, like really, really good, who could have filled that gap, and instead they're just like, nah, we're going to go for something a bit different and completely change their game plan, which, just didn't really back, if I'm perfectly honest.
No. Well, so I mean, you wanted to get into a bit more about New Zealand's and their role definition. So why don't we do a quick pivot?
Max, wait. Congratulations to Virat Kohli on his birthday, winning the toss, It was what this is. I think he'd lost 31 out of 44 tosses. That is a bad tosser, isn't he? In that regard. But I mean, yeah, great victory for India. Makes the tournament a little bit more interesting now because there's a bit of jeopardy and there's watching the game. Afghanistan are never going to have that as many fans ever again, so it's going to be an unbelievable spectacle when they play New Zealand. So yeah, it's very exciting. So yeah, bring the game on, I reckon.
Yeah. All right. Well, there. Quick pivot to Namibia versus New Zealand then. Yeah. Friend style. This one was a bit closer, and possibly that was because Namibia won the toss for this one, and it was at Sharjah, so they put New Zealand into bat, which was obviously their best hope of getting a result. And for a good 16 overs, they were right in this game. None of the top four managed to really get away from India for New Zealand. I mean, Martin Guptill was going at a run of ball. Daryl Mitchell got 19 or 15, but no one really kicked on, and it looked tough to score. And once again, we'd seen Namibia do a pretty decent job with the ball, but come the 16th over, Glenn Phillips and Jimmy Neesham came together at the crease and let rip, and they took the game far too far away from Namibia in the end, with a very impressive stand at the end there of 70 odd, and it took the game from being possibly in the balance to a comfortably looking situation for New Zealand, and that's how it proved with Namibia's batting effort. They didn't really get out of the blocks to start with either, but the difference between them and New Zealand is that they didn't have someone with the talent of Jimmy Neesham and Glenn Phillips to come in at the end and smoke the bowlers all over the place. And it ended up being a pretty comfortable win for New Zealand. And I think for me, I don't know what you think, Ross, but professional, I would say, in the way they got through it.
Yeah, I think it's probably fair. Like, as you said, they were kind of strolling along. They didn't really do anything in the first 6 days. It was just like, yeah, we're here to play a bit of cricket. Yeah, if we don't beat Namibia, then India are going to have a pretty good chance of kind of squeaking in. But those last 4 overs were really quite something. And I mean, Glenn Phillips, famous for his bowling at Rajasthan Royals. Watching him kind of get going was good, right? But that's what that team needs. It feels like that New Zealand team. I think in the chat, Akash has highlighted that they kind of go under the radar, and it's mad that they do go under the radar. As like Dan Norcross pointed out, it's like they are world Test champions. They were almost ODI champions. By the barest of margins, they weren't. And it's kind of that position now at the T20s where their players have been playing in the IPL. They have been playing around the world. But just that explosiveness just doesn't seem to be there. Like Devon Conway, for example. Devon Conway is on the biggest purple patch that he possibly could do in the last kind of 12 months or so. And his meteoric rise has been really impressive. But it just hasn't really clicked at the World Cup, really. I think he's had one innings, which you kind of be like, yeah, that was okay. But their players just haven't seemed to, I don't know, have that explosiveness I think that the other teams do in the middle order.
I don't know. I mean, you say that, but I mean, yeah, maybe. Well, sort of the top middle order, yeah. Talking like 3 and 4. But I mean, Phillips and Neesham, they've got 2 guys there who can really finish a game off. Like as we saw it today. But they're like their strike rates in general are huge. Both above 150, and they're a great asset to this New Zealand team. I think they're quite underrated in terms of what they can do at the back end of a game. It just seems to be a game of catch up for them all too often, and I think. I think the toss is super important when it comes to New Zealand and their chances in this tournament. I mean, if they win, that's what I if they were to get into the semi-final, and assuming that would be against England, barring a very unlikely turn of events, if they won the toss, I'd be pretty concerned about getting over this New Zealand side. Yeah, I mean, they've got. The fact that Lockie Ferguson isn't around is quite.
Adam Mills not a bad replacement, though, is it?
Well, he's not done it yet, has he? He's been a bit expensive so far. He's quick, but he's been a bit scattergun so far. But he does have the talent to really, really get it right. But I think where I was sort of less bullish about New Zealand's chances would probably be in their spinners. And actually, Mitch Santner's been really good this tournament so far. He's been really economical, really tight, and taken some really important wickets.
He looks like an accountant. He looks like he's not a professional cricketer. He generally looks like, oh, can you go and get the invoices from Mitch? He doesn't come across as that elite athlete, and yet, as you say, he's performing quite well. He's not been kind of hidden away. Him and Ish Sodhi have been kind of front and centre. I mean, Ish Sodhi today was front and centre as he took a bloody cricket ball.
Yeah. Oof. Hopefully he's all right. But yeah, I mean, I think New Zealand, there's just there's something about them where you just like I guess you don't see necessarily a weak link in there. There's just they're quite consistently good, and that's what sort of concerns me about them. They're just kind of a kind of ruthless machine, just sort of purring under the surface, ready to disappoint you and get their revenge for the World Cup final. But we'll see about that.
Max, we do need to talk. Edges and Sledges are in the live chat. We haven't spoken about match fixing.
Which match was fixed?
All of them. All of them against India. All of them in favour of India. I'm not too sure. They kind of goes between one or the other. But I thoroughly enjoy all the conspiracy theories on Twitter at the moment around all the match fixing.
It's I thought the IPL was supposed to be fixed, but this is taking it to a new level, isn't it? This is even more rife than the IPL.
I can't believe Scotland were bowled out by Bumrah, Jadeja, and those guys. Clearly through the game, the Scots there. They beat Bangladesh, so they should be able to beat India. Everyone can see can see that. Yeah. And where was the fighting spirit today? I mean, Gerhard Erasmus bowling with a broken finger. If that's not lion-hearted, then what more do you want?
Yeah, we should have a word for Namibia, because obviously their final game will be against India. So we'll see how much they get paid to throw the game against India, because they've put in some pretty serious efforts against some of the bigger sides so far. They've not won, and they've not got particularly close to winning, but in every time.
Scotland. Yeah, they beat Scotland. It's just
Scotland.
Big boys.
Scotland doesn't count. No, actually, it does count, doesn't it? Because they've actually shown themselves to be pretty decent when we thought that perhaps Scotland were the side that could cause an upset after they beat Bangladesh. But that says, I think, more about Bangladesh now than anyone else. But Namibia have not disgraced themselves against any side they've played, any of the big boys so far.
Yeah, I must admit, today I really enjoyed the fact that they had a guy called Carl Birkenstock who demonstrated that he was durable, comfortable, reliable, a lot like the shoe.
Very good, very good.
Obviously, sometimes our
didn't bowl in open-toed sandals, though. Sadly,
no. Yeah, I thought that there's a real opportunity for Birkenstock there to actually really hammer that one home. But we'll see. The double strap, I think I'd go for if I was there. The single strap just wouldn't give you the support you'd need, would it, to be a bowler?
No, I don't think so. You can get some nice bright white ones as well, which would go quite well with sort of the general cricketing gear. But I wouldn't want to be copping one on the foot playing in those. But there's certainly a sponsorship angle in there, isn't there? I think if he can make it onto the big stage, then there's that shoe brand should come calling. But back to Namibia. I mean, I've been impressed overall, but I think there's one glaring issue for them. For me, that we've seen, and it's just the lack of a death bowler. We saw it today, and we saw it the other day as well in was it Pakistan, and it's just
it happens though. They're on that journey. They're on that journey, and sometimes like it happens. Like luck happens. Like David Visa kind of coming into their side and going to be like, do you know what? I'm going to go and play for Namibia. Great. But now they're in here, they're getting more money from. I mean, the win versus Scotland was worth like tens of thousands of pounds, right? And actually, that means that they can start elevating their players. They can better facilities, contracts, etc. So, hopefully, you'll see people developing. I mean, Trumpelman, for example, he's not the finished article yet, but he's not looking too bad really in that lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks a decent player. I think he's got some strapping on his knee at the moment as well, so he's not in full wasn't in full force today. But he he looks good. He looks one of that mold, doesn't he? The mold of the Trent Bolt or the I suppose David Willey ish.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I would love to see is like kind of after like an associate nations kind of like rest of the world 11. I would love to see like that. Like, you know how the NBA have like all-star games. Like, I would love to see that in cricket, just kind of once or twice, just to be able to kind of be like, let's raise the curtain on this. Because I know, didn't they used to do that in what was it? They've done it in cricket before, when like the opening game was like kind of an 11 plus against the champions. But I can't remember what format that was in. So good from me.
Yeah, excellent stuff. But no, I think more visibility of the associate nations, because they need a platform. We want them to develop, and we want more competitive teams. I think in world cricket, because at the moment we're reduced to trying to get interesting content out of what we can from a team being blasted by 14 overs in a World Cup game, and it's sort of we got to a kind of stage in the World Cup, I think, haven't we, where it was a really exciting start, and it sort of started to just peter out in the middle slightly.
Well, I think it's come back to the schedule that you talked about before, Max. So actually, the way in which they did some of these fixtures, I just think they ballsed it up a little bit. It's like a set list. You go see a band, right? Yeah, there's the bit like you have to start big, get everyone really excited. You go through the round, you bring them down and be like, play your slow songs, and you back up to finish. At the moment, it kind of feels like they started off like with like some okay songs, kind of gone down a little bit, went up in the middle, and are now kind of petering out. And hopefully, Afghanistan versus New Zealand is the best game.
Yeah. Hopefully, Afghanistan New Zealand is the best game ever, I think, is what Ross was about to say. But either he's gone or I've gone.
Oh, did I lose you?
No, we're back.
Oh, sorry. My internet is terrible alongside my cold.
So I filled in your gap. I finished off your sentence, which was you saying, hopefully Afghanistan New Zealand is the best game ever, which is, I think, is what you were going to say.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. And then I went on to say that I completely agree with you that the BCCI, the ICC could have organised these fixtures in a much better way.
Yeah, but it is what it is. We've got we'll either have I think India Namibia on Monday, isn't it? Which is now just going to be it's going to be pointless either way. If Afghanistan win, then India will India will need to win it, but they will win it, and it won't be an issue. And if New Zealand beat Afghanistan, then that's a pointless fixture for everyone, and maybe we'll see the teams shuffled around. But bring on the semi-finals, I say. That's what I'm looking forward to. That should be good. See if anyone can topple the unbeaten sides, assuming they get through their unbeaten. What's the four that you think we're going to see?
I reckon it is England, Australia, Pakistan, New Zealand. I just can't. As much as I think it would be great for our listenership, India going through. I just think it's such a big ask to beat that New Zealand team, as we've kind of talked about, Max. And I just don't think Afghanistan, if Majid plays, the chances go up significantly. So I genuinely think that they have the bowling to stifle. And I think their approach that they used against Pakistan would work quite well against New Zealand. Without that extra that 4 overs, that staple 4 overs, I'm just a bit concerned about them.
Yeah, there's something nagging. There's something nagging at the back of my mind that says we're going to see one last twist. But I don't know.
England knocked out, disqualified.
Well, no, it could be West Indies actually turning up and beating Australia. Okay. Or it could be Afghanistan managing to come to get past New Zealand. I don't know which is more likely, to be honest. I think probably Afghanistan winning is more likely from what I've seen from the West Indies. But it would be nice. It would be nice to see the Aussies fall at the final hurdle, having pretty much done what they need to do. But that's just, and it would be a nice little bit of sort of a pep before the Ashes. Go over and face a demoralised Ashes squad from the T20 disappointment. But I think that might be wishful thinking somehow.
All right.
Any questions, Ross? Do we have questions from Twitter or in the chat that we need to go?
Well, we've just had a last-minute super chat from Sunil. India's chances to qualify is equal to Afghanistan's chances to beat New Zealand, so maybe 10%. He reckons.
10%. I reckon that is a little low. I reckon that's a little pessimistic. I reckon 20-25. I reckon, given the conditions, given the importance of winning the toss, I think. I think Afghanistan.
They've got a 1 in 5 chance. Of a 1 in 10 chance. Is that what you think?
Yeah.
Fair. Okay. Well, I think we'll have to see, right? I think we will be back and we will be covering those games. I just think it's a great part of the tournament now that we have to strap ourselves in for, Max, and bear the brunt of our listeners dwindling off when India get knocked out. So.
We did just get asked England v India or England New Zealand. Which one would you prefer?
England versus India would be amazing. From an England perspective of who would beat easier, I think would beat New Zealand easier. But in terms of a spectacle, you want to see the best players, right? If you want to see India versus England, they beat us earlier in the year. It would be an unbelievable semi-final, final, wouldn't it? So, yeah, there we go. Thank you ever so much for listening, everybody. There's about 250 people who've been watching this concurrently, so thank you for joining us, especially for games that have lasted all about 10 minutes. If you could like this video and subscribe to our channel, we've had some great interactions on Twitter in the last few days. So, continue to do that. Follow us at The Cricket Pod. And if you want to support the show, Patreon.com/The Cricket Pod. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much.